And welcome back. Today is Monday, August 6th, 2018. Are you guys getting sick of good news? Are you sick of positive things coming out and cryptocurrency not moving? Well, if you are, we could talk about this guy right here. But of course, then we do have to talk about some more good news because that's mostly what there is. Before we get into those two things, I do want to start by just taking a look at our good old friend here, the Wall Street cheat sheet. So based on what I believe, this is kind of my opinion, but I also would love you guys' input as always about where potentially we could be on this cycle here, this market cycle. So I think specifically, and we'll get into the chart and the prices very briefly right at the beginning to kind of give perspective. But I think most recently the little downturn that we've taken, has that done anything to the sentiment or the psychology? The feelings appear as the market fluctuates. So this is really all about market psychology. It's all about your emotional ties or your emotional, how you're feeling emotionally. That's the whole point of this cheat sheet here. So has the last dip affected your emotions? I want to talk about that a little bit because again, this has kind of been the story for the past 8 months. And whether or not this is really accurate, it doesn't necessarily matter, but it's more of just an illustration of how people are feeling, and I think that most likely does correspond. I think these do probably go in order in sense of like anxiety, then you get denial about it, then you panic, capitulate, you get angry, and then depressed, and depressed is pretty much just like the last stage there before potentially, getting some disbelief and leading towards hope and optimism and belief and everything. But yeah, before we jump into this video, if you're new, please consider subscribing to the channel and give this video a like if you enjoyed the content. So if we look at Bitcoin here on the daily, again, this won't take too long. You can see just how oversold we are. You can see the RSI hovering about 41, and you can see the stochastic just leveling out at the bottom there. You can clearly see Bitcoin finding and having found support for a few days right on that 50-day moving average right here. You can see that's where it seems to so far have been holding as well. This is where we found resistance back in March, and then resistance really for the past 2 months, beginning June 9th all the way to now. I mean, this has been a huge zone right here, so nothing too surprising here where we're so far finding support. And yeah, so far news has not been moving the price. Story of 2018 so far. If we take a look over to Litecoin, still, I made a video on Friday. I took the weekend off, but I come back and literally Litecoin's in the exact same spot essentially. I didn't want to see it go below these previous lows of the end of June, beginning of July, and it hasn't so far. So XLM, kind of same story here. XLM holding right on that 50-day moving average as well. You can see the oversoldness all the way down below 40 on the RSI, and you can see the stochastic essentially the same as Bitcoin's there. See, Vertcoin actually broke the 50-day moving average, so we'll have to see there, but you can see it is pretty oversold as well, just like everything in the entire market, so I wouldn't be surprised if we had somewhat of a bounce. Again, Ethereum Classic looking pretty good. This is most likely all due to the Coinbase listing, which will be in actually probably tomorrow is what they said. It could be a day or two later. Actually surprised, if the market wasn't in the dumps in terms of price, this probably would have pumped a lot more. I still think it will pump a lot more in the future, but it did bounce off the 50-day moving average as well as the 20-day EMA. It's obviously heading in a different direction than the rest of the market. Again, this is probably 100% completely due to the news of it being listed on Coinbase tomorrow. I do expect the price to continue to climb, even if it would potentially dump immediately if it got listed. I do think that it's going to pump for the long term, especially though this market has just been brutal, and I think if the market would even just get healthy, not even necessarily go to the moon, but if it would just get up to maybe 300 billion again, 350, which isn't asking too much, I don't think. If the market does kind of recover a little bit, I think Ethereum Classic will start performing even much more efficiently than it has been performing. I think unfortunately the listing probably didn't pump the price of Ethereum Classic as much as it could have if the market was in a much more neutral or even just healthier place. But because the market has been underperforming for so long, it probably definitely affected the listing influence of this price right now. But again, once it does get listed, I do think that the price will most likely be driven up when people see that listed on Coinbase there. And finally, too, we have Digibyte that actually did break the 50-day moving average, as well as the 200, which are kind of converging together right here, right around about 34 cents. Currently, it's at 33 cents, so it's basically right there. Could easily bounce above that. But yeah, again, you can see just how oversold it is. 39 as well on the RSI, just like most of these top coins here. And the stochastic is kind of curving up a little bit, leveling out pretty much at the complete bottom, just like Bitcoin, just like Litecoin, just like majority of these coins here. Just as you can see here, we're still right around 250 billion US dollars in the overall market cap. This has really been the bottom so far. So let's take a look here. You can see really over the past year, this has really been the bottom. And it has not really broken past 250. So will we this time? But you can see the first time was all the way back in April, and then pretty much the entire month of June, a lot of July as well. And now we're still sitting here again. So could this be the leveling out phase? So that's what leads me to want to jump into this here. So what we see with the Wall Street cheat sheet is that for a long time before we do end up hitting disbelief and really starting another rally again, we basically trade sideways. We don't see massive drops like this. You know, we see an occasional plummet and then kind of coming back, at least according just to this cheat sheet here. But one thing we definitely do see is kind of leveling off for an extended period of time before we kind of bounce back and get some volume, get some momentum back into the market. And that's kind of what we're seeing. So if we look at this chart here, the 1 year chart, you can see this is, you know, probably the closest representation of this so far that we have. You know, granted it's not quite as drastic, but this is also not on logarithmic. If this were on a logarithmic scale, you would see it's a little bit more dramatic, and it's a closer representation of this. I think definitely with what we've seen, and this is why I wanted to point this out. So basically this is where we're starting to get a very slight amount of positivity back into the market and optimism. And with this beginning back around July 27th, this downtrend, what do you think? Do you think that the market sentiment has changed at all? One thing I do find interesting over the weekend, I didn't spend really too much time looking at cryptocurrency, but one thing I did notice, I like to keep an eye on the cryptocurrency subreddit and the chat thread, just to see kind of general chat, to see what people are saying about cryptocurrency as a whole. And one thing I did notice is that people are a lot more pessimistic than before. And usually if there's a pessimistic comment, they're usually met with something optimistic underneath it, like, oh, you know, seeing negative comments like this means that we're getting ready to start a bull run or something. So it's people kind of pointing out, when you see people that are scared, it could potentially mean that the market is ready to do the opposite, to get healthy again. What was interesting, at least when I looked at it at that point in particular, I think it was on Saturday, every comment that was negative was also met with another negative comment. So pretty much the people that were there in the past to help pick up people in terms of their sentiment and get them excited again, instead of getting a positive comment back, people are pretty much commenting like, yeah, you know what? Maybe cryptocurrency won't go up for another 3 years, or the market won't turn around for another few years. So in my opinion, or at least, you know, could we question this, that we are finally seeing that depression potentially? I don't think we're really seeing anger anymore. I could be wrong about that. Probably a mix of anger. I'm sure some people are very angry, but I think most people that are angry probably have been angry for quite a few months now, you know, especially if you invested up in this range, or even at a lot of these high points on the way down, you know, cost averaging. Even if you went with a typically smart strategy in a bull market, this is a bear market, so it's not necessarily good to do this. But even for people that bought in, you know, essentially going down, some people are pretty angry about that. So, and I'm sure some people are very depressed as well. And it could be a mix. Maybe this entire phase is a mix of being angry and being depressed. And when we don't have people coming to people's rescue in the comments being like, hey man, you know, you just got to hold on a little bit longer. When we don't have that, I think that's a really good sign that potentially, I don't want to jinx anything obviously, but potentially could the market be getting ready for a move in a positive direction? You know, who knows? I'm sure there are a lot of people still coming to people's rescue, but it was just funny that I went through probably 30 different comments on the subreddit the other day, and really nobody was offering a positive opinion. Everyone was just like, yeah, you know, this is pretty bad. This will probably last a few years. So I just thought it was interesting to see that. And real quick, you can end. So Goldman Sachs has kind of been on crypto's side, at least the new CEO who's taking over, I believe, in a month or two. He's the EDM DJ, Mr. Solomon, I believe. So this is Blank Fiend right here, but he's being replaced very soon. But yeah, potentially considering offering a custody solution. Good news for crypto. And we have our friend here, Jamie Dimon, returning to bash Bitcoin. Last time he did, I believe, was back in October of 2018. And if we just zoom out, what happened last October around here is when he started hating on Bitcoin, calling it a scam. And of course, we went here. So potentially, could we be starting a new bull run because Mr. Dimon is again talking trash on Bitcoin? Most likely not, but I just thought it was interesting to bring up.